All right, we're back. So what's a little bit different about today is that normally I can see your guys' comments and that you're there, and right now I can't see that, but when I went out, I saw that you guys are definitely there. So we are back live with Skip Lowry, and I was asking him questions about interpreting, talking about Yurok culture. And so I'm going to fix my phone real quick and we're going to continue the conversation. And again, we will answer your questions after the interview because we can't see you and we can't see your questions. So, and we got people in the park today and we're going to keep our social distance from them and while we fix this phone too. So here we go. All right. So we're going to take a walk here and we are back. And there I see Sherry. Hello, Sherry. Okay, so let's step out here for a while. How are you guys doing today?
Good, how are you?
Awesome.
Where did they get the tickets? Where do you drop them off? Over here?
Yeah, it's a visitor kiosk right over there in the front.
Can you just drop it in?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks.
All right, so we are back. Thank you for being patient with us today. And we're having little technical errors and running into people, but that's what makes Facebook Lives so entertaining is you just never know what's going to happen. So here we are. All right. Hello, bud. Yes, we're back. So when you come to a state or national park, a lot of times you go and you hear this presentation on the dinosaurs that live there, the trees that live there, the forests that live there, or the people that live there. But almost always, up until recently, when you came to California state parks, the interpretation about indigenous cultures was done by someone who looks like me, okay? Instead of someone who looks like him. So what we're going to ask, Skip, is why do you think, we can be right here, why do you think it's important that there are Yurok interpreters interpreting Yurok culture?
Well, primary source information is the most accurate and effective and respectful and appropriate form of education and interpretation. I speak about the importance because I've actually witnessed and experienced the inappropriate level of bad interpretation in our state parks, unfortunately. One time I showed up to a sacred site that's sacred to me, the Sumac Village in Patrick's Point State Park, sacred to a lot of Yurok people, and there was a youth group, and there was their youth group leader, and they went into the Yurok house and they didn't see me there, and I eavesdropped because I could hear the youth group leader doing an interpretation about a culture that was not his. And it was absolutely inaccurate, it was offensive, and it was hurtful.
So he was talking about Yurok culture from inside of a Yurok structure, and he was misinforming all the youth he was with.
Yes, yes. And speaking about us like in past tense, just making up outlandish lies about our culture for the sake of entertaining his group. In our parks. And so I waited afterwards and I asked them if I introduced myself, and they all got really scared and fearful of
Did you say you were from you were Yurok descendant?
Yeah, I introduced myself as a Yurok descendant, and that I kind of said, oh yeah, I listened to what you were saying and that's inaccurate, and I am here if you want to ask questions and engage me. And they didn't. They chose to leave the area that we were at, and it really opened my eyes and to say, wow, if there's not our voice in the parks, who knows what people are saying and how much, what is that, just the inaccurate information and the false narratives about our people, our way of life, our perspectives and worldview, and our relationship with our places.
And, you know, just because him and I have been talking about this for a few hours today. And we've been talking about, like, you know, as a European interpreter, and then I'm in these places that indigenous people live for thousands of years, like, how do I talk about it? And so we were watching a video of his where he was interpreting Yurok culture, and it was interesting to me because the way that he is not just the subject matter, and it was also the way you talk about it. So like you don't mix things, and like just like a different cultural way of delivering. and that you would miss out if you didn't hear from a primary source. So what is a way, like how can people relate to what you're saying, like as far as like primary source? Like you mentioned an example to me earlier about like if you were an interpreter of a church.
Oh yes, that was so imagine if I was paid as a Native American person who has I was not raised in let's say the Catholic community, and I was paid to go inside a church and tell tourists who are interested in the Catholic culture, Catholic religion, the structures, and they would come ask me for my interpretation, and I would just spew whatever I thought. Or maybe I would go talk to other Indians about their understanding of Catholicism, and interpret that as the way that it is. And so imagine me going into any cultural place without any information or connected.
No connection.
No connection.
Or maybe biased information.
Biased information, and getting paid to bring that inaccurate information to the public.
Well, it's just listening to you and talking with you today. Like I love this park, and I love California, and I love how beautiful it is here. And I want to understand this place. I want a sense of place, and from talking to you, I get this better sense of place that I couldn't get from someone else that doesn't have an indigenous perspective, that doesn't have like a thousands of years tie here. And so for me, that's been really good and healthy. And it's also like confirmed some of my, my own ideals. Oh.
Coconut, the red-headed woodpecker.
Yeah. Yep. There you go. Like we're getting the bird serenades today. Wow. This is a good day.
Good luck.
So, these kind of perspectives are going to be so important when people go to Patrick's Point. They're going to not just hear the information, but, you have more of like an indigenous perspective about just even how to relate to people. And so one of the ways that him and I found this out today is that I'm very Western. And so I've always been into land management. And so we started talking about Native American land management, and you stopped me and you said what?
I don't consider our culture as land management. We were in relationship with everything. Each other, all of the physical stuff that we call this world, this earth, was put here for the purpose of being in relationship with the humans who were going to come be a part of this world when it was our time. And so there's just that cultural shift of we don't have dominion over this land. The land technically has dominion over us. We belong to this place, and we have a responsibility to this place to honor the times, the seasons, the cycles of life that we depend on, and that we are in relationship with, and always have been, and always will be, and still are today.
So even when you were like fishing for salmon, which when European Americans invaded, colonized this area, there was the stories about so many salmon in the river you couldn't even paddle a canoe through it, and then within 100 years the salmon are disappearing. Now they're on the endangered species list in California, coho salmon. So it's because we didn't look at it as a relationship, we looked at it as a commodity. So do you think that type of like relationship thinking is something that could be adopted by the mainstream culture, maybe help us with some of our ecological challenges?
Yeah, we're coming out of a time of really violent oppression of indigenous California peoples and societies. Contact happened here not that long ago. My great-great-grandmother was pre-contact. Wow. And I know her name, and I met my great-grandmother. And so it's really recent here, and there's, yes, the opportunity exists now. I have to say, unfortunately for my dad, it didn't exist. My dad was living in a time when it was not safe to be Native American in Northern California, in the town that I grew up in, when it was finally safe to be Native American. And everybody wanted to have a little bit of Native American blood, which is a good thing. Yes, I do. To answer the question, yes, I think they can adopt some stuff, but we don't want to appropriate. So that's what my dialogue is going to start talking about in depth, and it's going to be uncomfortable conversations a lot of times, hard conversations, a lot of good things, but a lot of bad things have to be talked about to see what the best practices that you can adopt and be a part of from our perspective and our culture, especially when you're in our place.
So that's something that we can look forward to. You're saying, like in the 3 o'clock Sunday talks, is like maybe you'll help us understand the difference between cultural appropriation and then like adopting best practices or best perspectives. Is that something that people could look forward to in future?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's I'm looking forward to sharing as much of the cultural worldview and perspectives that I can. I look to my elders for guidance on how to respectfully talk about what they've invested in me. Because not that long ago, our culture was targeted for elimination. It was targeted for preservation in like a display case in a museum, which unfortunately there's a lot of our items and even our burial, some people still in museums on display. We're trying to change the narrative, push back that we are not displayed peoples anymore. We are a living culture, that we want to be in relationship with all of the newcomers that are here, because there's a lot of wealth and respect that is in our culture for the land that we all depend on and love so much.
Interesting. I have a question from Robin Shorter that kind of is to what you just spoke about. But in future lives at 3 o'clock on this Facebook page, are you going to be addressing a way for non-Indigenous people to talk about and ask about the land and culture appropriately and respectfully? Are you going to help people do that? Because that's something that, at Patrick's point, that you are doing. Are they going to be in the Facebook Live as well?
Yes. I'm gonna start generating that. And again, this is new to me, and this conversation is gonna be organic, and it's not gonna be. I'm not gonna just teach, and it's gonna be a two-way street, a relationship. And yes, we're gonna start talking about how can we include the people who are not native that want to be allies and part of our communities and supports and be engaged in relationship with the beautiful part of our culture.
Awesome. Robin said, thank you so much. I just want to thank the Yurok elders and the Yurok tribal members and the Yurok descendants, as well as our superintendent, Victor, for making these wonderful things happen. It's so, like he said, it's new, where Indigenous people are doing their own interpretation. And it's going to be so much better for everybody from around the world who comes to these parks, because we get people from all around the world. And this is going to be such a better understanding, a better learning, a transformational experience. And so everybody who's involved, thank you so much. This is beautiful. And we just announced that the Yurok tribe will be taking over the visitor center at Stone Lagoon. So you're going to want to check that out, because it's going to be so cool. So thank you very much, Skip. 3 o'clock. This page, California North. Wait, we always have a hard time with this. California State Parks, North Coast, Redwoods. And now at 3:30, him and I are going to jump over to the Humboldt Redwood State Park page. We're going to have a very similar conversation we just had. So if you missed the beginning of this, no worries. Hold on, our boss is commenting. This is what good interpretation can do. Rethink who we are and give us an opportunity to do something new in the world. Yes. And thank you, Marnin, for being a huge part in that. Because we really appreciate that we're making the world a better place through our state park jobs, interpretation. So thank you. And we'll see you guys at Sundays at 3 with Skip Lowry, where we're going to grow your psychological horizon.